Hey everyone, good afternoon. Hope all is well. I'm Rodney Sampson, Executive Chairman and CEO of Opportunity Hub, and I also have the privilege of serving as a venture partner at Draper Goren Holm. I'm excited about today's conversation entitled DeFi and Crypto's Ability to Close the Global Inequality Gap. I'm excited about today's subject matter experts, and you know what? You are in for a treat. So we're going to kick this off, and I would like for Anna, then Cecilia, then Carmelle, and then Adel, in that order, to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to crypto, to blockchain, and to DeFi with brevity, because I know we've got a lot to discuss. Thank you.
Wow, what a pleasure to be here with all of you. I can't wait to hear all of your journeys to crypto. I actually started off as a nonprofit person, a true pure idealist, determined to make the world a better place, that was quickly disillusioned by the world of NGOs and switched over to technology. I spent around a few years working in enterprise technology, and I realized that no, in fact, my mission in life was not to help Procter & Gamble sell more diapers, and instead I wanted to work to create the new money, if you will. And so I moved over into the crypto space in 2017, began working at Bancor Protocol, which was doing some really exciting experimentation in the field of cryptocurrency. Now I work at gooddollar.org. We're the social impact spinoff of eToro.com, which is a major capital markets platform. And what we're really focused on is we've built a solution, a protocol based off of the different smart contract infrastructure across decentralized finance that is designed to create, distribute, and pay for basic income at scale. And the how we're doing this, I'd love to get into, but you said brevity, so I won't. But the idea is wrapping around all of the amazing different smart contract applications that create value and using that value to create a reserve-backed basic income coin. The goal of doing so is to unite the interests of the Western world that has capital and those that need it. And this is the new basic income economy that we are setting out to build and launch in a few weeks. So thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Welcome. Amazing journey. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I believe I'm next. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Great. Awesome. So I'm Cecilia, and I've been working for a while in the intersection of frontier technologies and social impact. So how can we leverage from these technologies to impact more people and generate more social value in the world? I actually started my career a bit opposite to Anna. So in the corporate sector, I had a background in business, but I was super motivated about social impact causes. And when I was very young, I started volunteering, and I just realized also I faced kind of like what Anna said, like these second thoughts around the short-term impact of charitable projects that didn't have the financial sustainability to grow over time. So that's why I basically decided to, over my career, combine the business background and the mindset and the financial sustainability to projects, the social impact as the main goal to pursue, and the technology to amplify these projects. So now I'm an advisor for UNICEF Ventures, and I'm sure here everyone knows what UNICEF is about. Everyone knows that UNICEF is an agency within the UN working for the development and protection of the most vulnerable children in the world. But what a lot of people usually don't know is that within UNICEF, there's an innovation team exploring how can emerging technologies help amplify the humanitarian goals that UNICEF has in more than 190 countries. So my team is the Ventures team, where I lead a group behind the sourcing and selection of startups that we decide to invest in. And then we support them to grow from a minimum viable product into amplifying their work, impacting more users, and generating a positive impact in the local communities around the world. I guess that's the summary.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much and welcome. You brought back so many memories of me being just a boy in elementary school collecting coins in that UNICEF container, right?
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
We're not normally related to crypto and blockchain.
Right.
So at my team, we're trying to change that.
No, I understand. Good. Carmelle.
All right. I'm Carmelle Cadet. So I'll start from the beginning, but I'll be brief because I think that's the important context. So I was born and raised in Haiti. So the UNICEF story and the NGO story is something that brings back memories too. I was born in early 80s and the days of political upheaval and so on. But a lot of work has been done when it comes to trying to level out the equality and the poverty in those countries. So that's my background. I mean, I left Haiti when I was 16, and when I moved to the US, I got access to financial markets and got very lucky to get into school and got exposed to corporate finance and fell in love with it. So I joined IBM to do an internship and stayed for 10 years. So after leaving, I managed global accounts and kind of learned the enterprise IT business, kind of global deal structuring, and that is essentially my background, doing that especially in the financial services industry. But what I realized over the past 2 years, so we started around the blockchain and looking at decentralized finance, especially around the time of Bitcoin. I have an interesting path from DeFi to CeFi that kind of leads me to an interesting space to say the roles of both. But for me, the focus has always been given people who are born in people who are in situations and environments where financial services are not readily available or at least affordable and accessible, how do we restructure the system to make that affordable to them? That's as simple as that. And I never particularly found an answer until I heard what blockchain was, and the light bulb just came on. And said, this is what we need, and let's go figure it out. And so about a year ago, I started EMTECH. Because realizing that the capability around tokenization and blockchain capability to provide more visibility and more access was something that that there was value in restructuring the centralized system to do that in order to open it to decentralized finance. So I'll talk more about that later.
Excellent. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Adel, bring us home.
Hey, so my name is Adel ElMessiry. I was actually born in Egypt, in Africa. I got my studies on a USA donated lab with UNICEF. So I've seen firsthand how those would work. And then I finished my undergrads in Europe and got my master's and my PhD in computer science AI from North Carolina State University. And then in the 90s, I turned down a big job for a startup because they said the magic words, you can do whatever you like to do, just make it happen. That startup got acquired. I got hooked on startup life. And ever since, my career was create a bunch of startups and grow them, get them acquired. And then when it gets too just complacent, I just get out and go back at it again. In 2010, I published my last paper on trust networks. And then a few years later, everybody's calling me up because there's this blockchain thing that came out of trust networks. So all of a sudden, I'm working on all of that. And that basically got me completely obsessed with how blockchain changing the world and changing how we think about assets and values driven there. I publish regularly on AI and blockchain, and always dabble with startups.
Excellent. Welcome. So, well, let's jump in. We are very excited about this topic. This topic, I think, globally is picking up steam, and a lot of people are tuning in to this concept. This reality is not a concept. This reality of the inequality gap. It's not just a US thing, it's a global thing. So I have questions that I want to ask you all, and I thank you for preparing as such. But I'd like to just have each of you go around this virtual room. And when you hear inequality, what does that mean to each of you specifically?
Do you want to go in the same order, Rodney?
Yeah, might as well trend it out.
So, I mean, I made a lot of money this week. I don't know about you guys, and that's because I'm fortunate enough to have assets in cryptocurrency, and I'm fortunate enough to have assets in the stock market, right? And so when I think about inequality, one of the things that we're thinking about is how do we actually increase the access to products that enable wealth creation and wealth duplication, right? And so I think for us, what we're thinking about is what is the simplest method or the simplest product that we can create that gives a digital asset away in the hopes that this is actually going to be the first touch point that someone who might not have a bank account and certainly has never heard of equities and maybe has only heard of Bitcoin as an idea, but most likely not, has ever thought of, right? And so the idea is how do we actually expand the pie and bring more people into this asset class early? It's not going to happen by accident. It's going to happen because we design products that are designed to solve for that problem, if you will, that are designed to actually onboard the 80% of the human population that lives on less than $10 a day. And so I think about that every day, and all that we do is how do we actually, from a systemic perspective, from a product perspective, bring those values to our products, to our UX, to our UI, to the entire experience that someone has. And we're very the mission that drives me every day is thinking about that access, and that access being so key to closing that inequality gap.
Thank you for that. Follow-on question for you very quickly. So you started off by saying, like, this week, today was a good day for you. What was your first touch point into, like you said, acquiring these assets, stocks, crypto? Let's say crypto in particular.
So crypto was, I would say, the first financial asset that I bought because I heard from a friend. Let's put it that way. And I heard it from a friend during a hot period, I'd say early in the 2017 rise. And that's what made me both fall in love with blockchain and transition my career in one fell swoop. It was like, drop the money on Coinbase, realize the amazing potential of this, transition my career towards working on these problems as quickly as possible. So that was my experience.
Absolutely. And I think a mindset came with that as well. It was something about risk-taking or trust, right? A friend brought it to you. And so because you trusted that friend, you took a risk into the unknown.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Good. Cecilia?
Yeah, something interesting from this panel, I thought, hearing the others as well. I'm also from Argentina, so I think it's interesting to have the different geographic locations spread from, different experiences of what brought us here. And when thinking about global inequality, I think I've been hearing some of the other sessions, and I think it's so interesting to hear the different aspects to DeFi, the different applications. But actually, for me, the global inequality is definitely, like, a big part of it is definitely access or lack of access to finance, but much of it is also the lack of access to the different areas that finance allows you to have, like connectivity. A lot of, more than half of the population don't have access to connectivity, which today means information, it means choice, it means opportunities. It also means a lack of access to education, food delivery, mental health opportunities. We're going through a pandemic that is a stretch into our psychological well-being and, of course, our healthcare in general. And there's a large part of the population that do not have access to these resources. So DeFi is also an opportunity to develop financial mechanisms to not only provide finance, but also to provide access to these resources that are needed to have a dignified life.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. And are you in Argentina right now?
I'm in New York.
Okay.
but I grew up in Argentina. So yeah, I mean, the pandemic, of course, everyone, I mean, you get a sense of the world, but
Sure.
it's a country like that. It's leading towards 50% of poverty of the population. So I think, you know, there's many areas that are compromised, and a lot has to do with the global inequality and the opportunities provided.
Absolutely. Thank you for your words. Carmelle?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that, because when I think about inequality, we usually don't talk about the different segments that are unequal, or and how we think about that is very important when it comes to thinking about solutions and how do we design for them. So, for example, we're talking about use cases maybe in one country or across the world, as far as healthcare or finance is the area that I spend a lot of time on. But even at a geographical level, as far as a lack of inequality, right? You know, how historically Black countries have been, or Latino countries and minority countries in general, have been disproportionately participating in innovation, for example. And that is such a big disadvantage to some countries that, especially when you have a brain trust that not only has access to and resources to design technology, to design the infrastructure, to design the system, and then turns around and tells everybody else how to, you know, the rules of the games for just, you know, for different sectors. That's really part of what led people to and drove to Bitcoin, right? And then kind of like go outside the rules, because, you know, who's making those rules? Us, and they did not even take my situation into consideration as the rules. One example of that is KYC, right? On how people do KYC across different countries. How do you expect people to have, you know, meet international standards, or a country trying to get themselves out of a de-risking situation as they're trying to manage and get through COVID, for example, right? So, but they don't have the infrastructure to provide KYC the way Europe does, right? And it's just not a right approach to looking at the world. So when we think about inequality, I think of it not only at the industry level and segments, but geographical. And part of that is the reason I focused as far as resources from a go-to-market perspective. For us, we focus on Africa and the Caribbean, even though we're building technology that can be applied across. It's just not, the attention is not there.
Thank you for your perspective as well. And context is definitely important. And it's incredible that each of you bring that different perspective and context to this conversation. Adel, when you mentioned that you were from Egypt, I was just there last year, and I want to go back to Aswan so bad. You know, I want to go back down the Nile and to Nubia. Here we are, stuck in place in America. So, your perspective.
My perspective is coming from my upbringing there, because when I think about the inequality, I think about that quadrants, the important and urgent, where they teach you in school always about like what's important and urgent. And if you're always stuck in that first quadrant, you'll not be able of going to things that are important but not urgent. And hence, similarly, if you look at the mass amount of people that not necessarily underbanked or like not banked, in the US itself, there is like 55 million people that are underbanked according to the feds. So they have so much pressure in their life, similar to what goes on in Egypt, where they may know they might have some sort of access, but they don't have the time to actually go there. So they are limited. There are no options for them to go and pick which one would be better. How would they go about figuring out their career, their future, and the financial instruments that would help them with that? So it becomes a little bit difficult. The shop is there, the bank is there, but they can't even set a foot in it because they are so busy with so much other things going in their life that they cannot get to that point. So in my view, we need to give everybody equal opportunity to be able of thinking through their life, thinking how they can go on their path and career so that they can get a better future, not just thinking about immediate need for today.
Thank you. Thank you for that as well. And Adel, we will continue with you. We don't want to presume that anyone that is watching or joining us later as they watch this, we're throwing around a lot of terms that we use inside of our bubble today. And would you take just a few seconds and just distinguish between DeFi and CeFi? What is DeFi? What is CeFi? What is the difference?
That's an excellent question. So CeFi is what we know today. That's centralized finance. And it's called centralized because you have to go through a central authority. So when you are conducting any financial transaction, you go through a bank, and that bank is your central location. And if I write you a check, it goes through the bank and has to clear through the bank. Now, if you are in a different bank, that check has to go through those two banks. So there's even a next level up from that one. And then you get into the Federal Reserve, and then there is no other bigger level to go there. So that centralization in the current financial system affects a lot of things in how they think and operate, in the sense of checks clear, it takes a few days before they clear. You need to, everybody saw our parents sitting on the weekend balancing their checkbook to make sure that it actually fits. So why would you do that? But things like those that were forced by the structure versus the DeFi, which is basically the decentralized finance. And in it, everything is already separated. Everything is instantaneous. So when you are transacting together, it's just another transaction on the ledger. The act of issuing you credit and having that recorded, it's done at the same time. Much more efficient, much more easier. There is no this middle layer. The layer has been already built into the structure of the system from the beginning. A big difference and shift as compared with the other one.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to come to Carmelle. Could you talk about the role of central bank digital currency in the DeFi world?
Sure. So when we think about central bank digital currency, for the purpose of what we think about as far as digital currency finance, it's important to realize that there are a lot of things that are centralized at some layer and decentralized at others, right? And money is one of those, cash is one of those. And I would argue, I was kind of playing around with the argument in my mind this morning. I would argue that Bitcoin is centralized at a protocol layer. It is centralized. You're limited to what you can do at a protocol layer. So there's decentralization and there's centralization in different ways. But like Adel said, the way we define it today is that centralized finance, you go through an intermediary that controls the mechanism through which you obtain or participate in a particular network. So here we're talking about inequality and the way we can segment those things to be is that there's a role for DeFi, which is huge as far as closing the gap that CeFi has not been able to thus far. When you think about what is valuable to a community, a stock might not be valuable, but a farm is, right? And being able to tokenize and creating asset and generating value from what a person has, that decentralization of creating an asset in a world where it can be exchanged and it can become a tradable mechanism is wonderful, right? And it becomes borderless. You create a world in which you have the transparency and the ability to transfer that as you please. But when it comes to how you pay for it, once you decide to buy that house, for example, I think every one of us on this can agree that whoever is going to pay you, if it is your house, that you would expect that money to be valuable and that you can actually do something else with it once you pass it over. So that's the combination. And depending on the use cases, I make something like this on Twitter, right? We cannot assume that the Bitcoin monetary policy is something that we can govern the world on, right? It's not particularly feasible on its own. So a combination of that is the value that we see. As far as closing the inequality gap, when we think about financial inclusion, Bitcoin is a good place to bypass where there is no currency, providing and mitigating some risk, especially when you think about some markets that are very illiquid. And when it comes to their currencies, that provide something else. But for the person that is local, right, that does not have the ability to overcome the learning thresholds that it takes to get into digital currency, to use digital currency, we're talking about education, the best alternative is still their, however little value we think it has, it is their local currency. That fundamental system is the only thing that's still trusted, and money is a trust system, right? So that's where, when you kind of have to look at it on a use case basis. That combination, I think, is going to be the benefit for all of us, and makes it even more decentralized, more resilient, to be honest, give people more options. Second to convenience, people love options, right? And let people choose how they maintain their assets and how they transact.
Sure. Thank you for that. Last question, Cecilia. In terms of DeFi applications, I heard that UNICEF recently launched the first crypto fund within the UN. Can you explain what this is about, why it was created, and then, of course, you have to tell us about some of the startups you've invested in or are looking to invest in?
Sure.
So creative.
Yeah, it was quite an achievement a couple of months ago. But basically, the crypto fund is a prototype fund within the umbrella of UNICEF's venture fund, so within my team, and it allows UNICEF to accept donations and make investments in cryptocurrencies exclusively. So for now, operating with Bitcoin and Ether, and basically we launched it in August last year as the first cryptocurrency denominated fund within the United Nations. Basically, in terms of the reasons of why we decided to launch it, we realized that we're living today in a digitally financed world. I think in many areas, in many programmatic areas of the humanitarian efforts, we speak about the future of work and the future of healthcare and the future of education. I think if COVID brought us one thing, is that the future is now. We now need those solutions. We now need to live in this digital world that it's operating digitally, where we need to have solutions around digital healthcare, digital education, and we were still not prepared. So basically, COVID accelerated the steps we needed to take to operate in this digitally financed world and this digital world. This is basically one attempt in which the United Nations is using innovative financial models to learn how to distribute resources digitally, how to increase the efficiency, the transparency of the internal processes, and the funds and the solutions that we decide to fund. In terms of the kinds of startups that we invest in, we actually just had an open call for applications where we were accepting solutions from developing and emerging countries. As I was saying before, we still tie up into the mission of UNICEF, where we try to support the development and growth of solutions in the places that need it the most. So we opened this funding opportunity for startups and projects from developing and emerging countries. And we received more than 500 applications from more than 70 countries. So it was quite a large pool. We're now working on the selection process of these solutions, and we're essentially looking for solutions that, exactly what we started at the beginning, help us close the global inequality gap. So solutions that allow us to provide connectivity, solutions that allow us to provide digital education solutions that allow us to deliver food and track the food deliveries to make more efficient supply chains. So all these solutions will receive cryptocurrency from our fund, and we're exploring with a very established institution like UNICEF the benefits also of operating with these currencies and leveraging from the speed and the transparency that this allows us to have. Maybe just one or two solutions that we just invested in as well. There's one solution working with a blockchain application to track the delivery of rice in low-income areas of India, benefiting more than 1 million people. As you know, like the delivery today and the supply chain is highly compromised. So having an application that allows you to track and to identify any challenges to the supply chain is super important. There's another application in Southeast Asia also. It's a financial application that allows you to give more visibility to the whole funding purpose from funds to small and medium enterprises. So how do you automatize? How do you automatize the process in a way that you can fund more projects and also be more aware of what the funding is allowing the projects to do. So always working with frontier technologies, mainly blockchain, data science and AI, extended reality and drones, and now combining it with also the benefits of the cryptocurrency funding.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So everyone that's listening, if you've got an idea, definitely, or a product, please make sure you reach out to Cecilia. I want to thank everyone, Anna, Carmelle, Adel, and Cecilia for allocating time today. And I'll say this, you are all brilliant in your own right, and your journey to this space is incredible. So have a great day and have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney.
All right, thank you.